purchase arrangement, let's say that it's raw land and you're going to build some property.
Okay.
It's the structure of the transaction of the borrower, the buyer of that house. If they go out there and they can find a deal that they can make available for lending and use seller-created financing. I'll give you an example of one that was done not too long ago. So the house was $230,000, and the seller of the property owed $160,000. Okay, so the difference between $160,000 and $230,000 was the equity of the seller, but the seller had a problem that their septic system had failed, and so many different transactions had fallen out of escrow because no one would pay for the septic system to be replaced prior to closing. And so they had buyers, and they had buyers coming in at over $300,000 after repair value or after remodeling. That was an ARV, an after repair value.
Mm-hmm.
But so and he was actually going into foreclosure because he had no money to be able to put into the septic, and he couldn't borrow against the house because the house didn't qualify for conventional loans. So he was caught in this little vicious cycle, downward spiral. So the client came in, makes an offer and says, here's what I'll do. I'll pay off your underlying loan with $160,000, but you have to take a second position behind my new construction loan for the balance of the $230,000, or what is that, $70,000. And then they'll repair the house. So the lender that came in was a hard money lender, and they were able to loan $160,000 against it. And with the $160,000 against $230,000, that would have been its loan to value, right? $160,000 divided by $230,000. And the lender also put up an additional $30,000. I know this isn't the $100,000 that you're talking about, but all things being equal, you don't actually have $100,000 to loan. You have $100,000 plus whatever as a lender you can borrow to get that deal done. So you could do a $300,000 deal. Someone else will put up the $200,000, but we'll get into that later.
Sure.
But so what you had was you had this second, and the second was being carried back by the seller. And the new hard money lender got a superior position because they were bringing in the money that paid off that original debt, as well as the money that was being put in for the new septic. And it included the money to fix the house. So after the house was completed, its value was over $330,000. So you have $330,000, and the lender is into it a total of $190,000. The property was sold, the lender in first was paid off, the seller in second position was paid off, and the equity went to the buyer. It was about the structure of the transaction. They had a need, can't sell, has to improve the septic, had to totally decommission one tank and bring in a $30,000 system. Mm-hmm. Or I think it was $22,000. But other than that, he was kind of, and that was brought to me from a client that said, I think I'm gonna make a loan to this person so that they can put in this septic tank. And I went, whoa, this guy lives in the house. You can't make him a loan. Isn't that odd? You can't make him a loan against his property because he's owner occupying it, and there's consumer laws against it. So you're going to have to structure it as a purchase. You're going to have to buy it from him, do the improvement, and pay him off the rest of his money after the improvements are done. But he couldn't make a loan because it would have been, usurious loan. It would have been more interest than you couldn't make him a hard money loan.
So I guess just for, I don't know if it would be approaching the legal, I don't know, whatever, if there's an arbitrary legal line, but what would differentiate between that and just like giving the guy a personal loan?
Well, the defense of, so could it have happened in all good things being equal? Okay. If you made him a loan and charged him a rate and he said, oh man, that's great. And everything went fine. Probably nothing bad would have happened because everybody got along. You never hear about the good deals.
Right, but I guess would that be in violation of the Dodd-Frank thing?
I think it would have, because if you secure it against the property, then, and it's just about the return, you can make him a loan. You just can't charge more than 12% total in Washington State to do it.
And it couldn't be secured by the property.
It can be, as long as you haven't charged more than 12% total. So
I see. So it's
so
the
you
rate.
can't take a piece of his deal, like, hey, I'll loan you 30 and I'll secure it by a mortgage, and then I'll take a piece of your transaction and I'll do the work and we'll do it, and then I'll get a third of the transaction or half. You can't do that because of the fact that he's owner occupying it and all the rest of the stuff. There's legal loopholes to go through. So as we're talking about it, you go, in looking at the structure that they had, it was best determined that it was like, you're going to have to either, one, have him transfer the property from himself into an LLC, and then you can make an LLC a loan. And it was more like, then you're dependent upon this person that currently lives in it. And he had a lot of stuff in there. So he's got to remodel the place to make, the house more presentable and benefit from the full market value of it. And that didn't look like it was going to happen. He wasn't able to get this first portion done. Mm-hmm. So it was best like, we need to have somebody else in the position of actually doing the improvements, because if they're not, they might not get done. This is going to stretch out. And then the complaint would come back from the borrower going, after all of this, all you really did is loan me money for the septic system, and I don't want to move now. And now the creation of the problem comes in. Best to avoid it. Best to structure it such that it's a transaction that's everybody knows what position they have, and that they get their payments and they get their structure, and that they have to live by the rules of these individual mortgage positions that they have. Because it was, if the borrower didn't do what they said they were going to, this guy has a second position behind what he owed plus the septic tank amount. Mm-hmm. And that was okay. So he could just take it back, and his property wouldn't have now been improved. So everybody's on this same, ground that they understand what's going on. And that can happen. So it's best just to structure it. But I like to stay away from any owner occupied stuff, if I can at all. Right. Now, I'm involved in a lot of owner occupied transactions, or have been, that are created because I've sold a property to somebody and they give me back paper. But that's not a hard money loan type of situation. That is a set rate, it rarely goes above 7-8%, right? That's under the usury limits. And I don't charge points for those. So, if I were to sell you a place for $100,000 and you owe me $1,000 a month, that'd be 12%, right? We could just record that mortgage and you can live in it if you want to. If I'm charging you 15%, then it might be a situation where you could reduce the interest rate from the lender because it was for owner-occupied purposes versus something else. So there's a real easy way. Keep it in the business realm of what it's for. Keep it in the realm of it's for business purposes and they're doing this so that they can make money. And then keep the rates in such a way that you have a low LTV versus the value, and allow the people to get in there and do what they say they're going to do. And don't be afraid if they don't do what they say they're going to do. Just be okay with it either way.
Right.
If they pay you, great. If they don't, take the property back, have your exit plan, and have multiple exit plans for that. So, do you have any others as it resolve? Do you have any other as it relates to that?
No, I think that answers a lot of the questions I had going into it, and
well, we can just kind of shut this down. Thanks for doing this, because I think a lot of your questions are what other people are going to have, and we'll just kind of sit back and enjoy the lake a little and discuss it.